By 2007, Brittany's films were no longer the critical centerpieces of earlier years. They were smaller, independent, less ambitious. Whether by choice or by influence, the shift was unmistakable. Offers began to slow. Rumors began to grow. Studio executives whispered about her reliability. Directors questioned whether she was still the same vibrant performer they had once championed. And in the middle of that uncertainty, Brittany tried to hold on to the sense of identity she had built. The young girl who once left New Jersey with nothing but hope had become a woman trying to navigate the currents of an industry no longer embracing her with the same warmth. The rise had been bright, almost blinding. But just beyond the edges of that brilliance, something darker was forming. Something she could not see yet. Something that would soon swallow all the light around her. But fame doesn't last, and love doesn't heal everything. The first cracks appeared quietly, almost politely, as if Hollywood didn't want to disturb her. A missed role here, a canceled audition there. Then the whispers became sharper. Studio insiders claimed she was unreliable. Directors questioned her health. Casting agents noted changes they couldn't quite name. Her once steady ascent had begun to tilt, and she didn't know how to stop the slide. By 2008, another shift occurred, one far more dangerous. Brittany's world began to narrow around her husband, Simon Monjack. He became her manager, her spokesperson, her shield, and her filter. Everything, calls, meetings, scripts, went through him. Friends would later say it felt as if he had built a wall around her and locked the gate from the inside. Even longtime colleagues admitted they couldn't reach her anymore. She wasn't isolated by accident, she was isolated by design. Inside the home on Rising Glen Road, the atmosphere grew heavy. The house was cavernous, oddly silent, a place with a history of unease. Britney Spears had fled from it years earlier, saying something didn't feel right. Now it belonged to Brittany and Simon, and the energy inside it thickened as months passed. Rumors circulated about mold in the walls, about air that felt damp and wrong. The couple dismissed the concerns, but the signs were there. Shadows in the corners, humidity creeping up windows, a lingering coldness no heater seemed to fix. Her health began to falter, weight dropped, color faded from her face. She struggled to breathe after mild exertion, yet no doctor regularly visited the home. No hospital records showed urgent intervention. The woman who once lit up film sets with natural warmth now spent hours in dim rooms, wrapped in blankets, coughing through the night. Hollywood saw only the surface, a star slipping, a career faltering. No one saw what was happening inside those walls. Late in 2009, the spiral deepened. Simon suffered seizures. Brittany collapsed on flights. Both spoke of exhaustion. Both avoided medical help. Their inner circle had dwindled to almost nothing, and in that shrinking world, her mother, who lived with them, watched the decline quietly, her presence constant yet strangely muted. Outsiders would later question why two adults in medical distress were never taken to a hospital, why symptoms were minimized, why no one intervened. December 19th was the breaking point. Brittany's breathing grew shallow. She could barely stand without gripping the furniture. Her voice, once so bright, came out in thin, frayed strands. She should have been rushed to urgent care. She wasn't. Hours passed. The house remained sealed in silence. The next morning, a call finally went out. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but it was too late. She collapsed in the bathroom, unconscious, her body cold to the touch. Attempts to revive her failed. The girl who had once bounded across movie sets with unstoppable energy was gone at 32. The official report arrived days later. Pneumonia, severe anemia, prescription drugs. 3 conditions rarely fatal on their own, yet deadly together. Investigators raised eyebrows. Fans demanded answers. But nothing about the case moved cleanly. The home was cluttered with medications, some prescribed, some not. There was no clear timeline of her final days. No consistent witness accounts, no definitive explanation for how her health had crumbled so fast. Then the final shock arrived like a second blow. 5 months later, Simon collapsed in the same house. Same symptoms, same cause of death, same eerie pattern. The odds of such a coincidence were astronomical. 2 people bound by marriage, dying in nearly identical ways within the same walls, under the same mysterious conditions. Hollywood froze in place. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for a long time. But now it was too late to save either of them. The cameras had stopped. The world had moved on. And for the first time in her life, 5 months later, her husband collapsed in the same home. Same symptoms, same pattern, same ending. 2 lives extinguished inside a house famous for its unease. A house once owned by Britney Spears, who left it claiming something felt wrong within its walls. Investigators searched for logic. Fans searched for malice. Hollywood searched for closure. No one found any. Brittany Murphy had been the bright promise of a new millennium, a face that defined the late 90s, the heartbeat of films that shaped a generation. She made people laugh. She made them cry. She made them believe she would be here longer than 32 years. Yet behind her timeless smile was a life shrinking in silence, inside a home that seemed to swallow the air around her. Her final days were filled with secrets nobody wanted to explain. Her mother living in the house, her husband controlling every detail of her life, her health deteriorating without a single doctor stepping in. A girl once adored by millions fading into shadows no one noticed until it was too late. The world thought her story ended there, but that was just the beginning. Brittany Ann Murphy was born on November 10, 1977, in Atlanta, Georgia, a place far removed from the polished lights that would one day claim her. Her childhood was small, almost fragile, shaped by her mother, Sharon, a woman determined to carve a future out of limited space. When Brittany was 2, her parents split, and mother and daughter moved into a modest New Jersey apartment, the kind where winter seeped through the windows and ambition felt like an extravagant luxury. But in that cramped space, something unusual happened. Brittany discovered her voice. She wasn't the girl who blended into the room. She filled it. She sang, danced, memorized scripts from television shows, transforming the hallway into a stage. Sharon recognized the spark immediately. It wasn't the hollow glow of a child seeking attention. It was the early fire of someone who understood, instinctively, that performance was not a hobby, but a lifeline. By the time she reached her early teens, community theater directors already knew her name. She wasn't polished, not yet, but she was unmistakably alive. In 1991, everything shifted. Sharon quit her job, packed their belongings into the back of a car, and drove west. They didn't have money, connections, or a clear plan. What they had was the belief that Brittany belonged somewhere bigger. Los Angeles in the early 90s was ruthless to newcomers. The air smelled of exhaust and opportunity, and the streets were crowded with young hopefuls trying to outrun the same dream. Most of them vanished into anonymity. Brittany didn't. At 14, she was cast in her first major television role. Directors were drawn to her energy, the way her eyes carried both innocence and a flicker of something deeper. She wasn't conventionally beautiful by Hollywood's rigid standards, but she had the kind of face the camera loved. Expressive, quick, impossible to ignore. Producers described her as elastic, a performer who could shift from comedy to heartbreak without warning. Her early years in Hollywood were defined by discipline. Class after class, audition after audition. Long days spent in waiting rooms filled with girls who looked older, taller, thinner. She didn't win every role, but she won the ones that mattered. Clueless came first, the film that turned her into a cultural imprint. Yet behind the success was a girl still trying to understand the world she had entered. A world where praise was currency and insecurity was the shadow that followed every bright light. Brittany grew up fast in those years. Los Angeles has a way of aging people quietly, without ceremony. She learned how studios worked, how rumors spread, how a single photograph could reshape a career. But she also learned the intoxicating power of validation. Every time the camera rolled, she became larger than life. Every time it stopped, she shrank back into herself. The industry loved her because she was pliable. She could be rewritten, reshaped, molded to fit any role. But that pliability carried a cost. Hollywood rewards reinvention, yet punishes those who lose track of their center. Brittany was young, talented, and eager to please, traits that made her both irresistible and vulnerable. As success grew, so did the pressure to refine her image. the whispers began. Too soft, too round, too unconventional, too everything that didn't match the template of a leading star. Her mother, always present, always supportive, became both anchor and shield. They lived together, worked together, moved through Hollywood as a pair. To outsiders, they seemed inseparable. To insiders, their closeness was something harder to define. Part devotion, part dependency. By the late 90s, Brittany Murphy stood at the threshold of stardom. She had clawed her way out of a small apartment in New Jersey, pushed her way into an industry that chewed through young talent, and emerged as one of the most promising actresses of her generation. Her story was the American dream, told through the lens of a girl who refused to disappear. But even as she rose, the world around her began shifting. Expectations tightened, roles grew darker, pressure mounted, and somewhere in the distance, a distance she couldn't yet see, was the beginning of a slow, silent unraveling. Her journey had only just begun. The shadows were still gathering. In 1995, Brittany Murphy stepped into a role that would shift the orbit of her career. Clueless was released in the summer heat, a film drenched in pastel colors and teenage satire. But it was Brittany's transformation from awkward outsider to radiant ingenue that lingered long after the credits rolled. The industry noticed, so did audiences. Something about her felt new, not the polished perfection Hollywood was used to, but something more electric, more human, a spark that made her impossible to forget. By the late 90s, her momentum was undeniable. Each year added a new chapter. In 1999, she delivered a haunting performance in Girl Interrupted, sharing the screen with Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie, and proving she could stand toe-to-toe with Hollywood powerhouses. Her character was fragile, wounded, unpredictable, a role that demanded emotional precision. Critics called her work disarming. Some called it unsettling. Everyone agreed it marked her arrival as a serious actress. Then came 2002, the year everything accelerated. Brittany starred opposite Eminem in 8 Mile, a gritty Detroit story that required her to shed every trace of Hollywood gloss. She did it effortlessly. The film opened at #1, collapsing the distance between mainstream filmgoers and her growing fan base. Directors now saw her as a chameleon. She could be streetwise or ethereal, comedic or tragic, glamorous or broken. She could be anyone. Success had its own rhythm in those years. Red carpets, long nights on set, hotel rooms that blurred into each other. Her name appeared in magazines, her face became familiar on billboards, and studios began lining up scripts. Just Married gave her box office appeal. Sin City in 2005 reshaped her into a noir figure, sharp-edged and luminous under stark lighting. Every new role revealed another layer of her talent, but with each triumph came subtle shifts, whispers behind closed doors, observations that were less about her acting and more about her appearance. Hollywood had always fixated on image, but now its gaze tightened around her. Questions floated in the air. Why did she look thinner? Was she changing to fit expectations? Or was the industry reshaping her, one comment at a time? Brittany brushed off the speculation, but the pressure moved silently under the surface, threading itself into her daily life. There were other signs too, the kind most people only recognize in hindsight. Exhaustion masked behind wide smiles, nervous energy on interviews, the constant push to prove she deserved the spotlight she had already earned. Those closest to her said she was generous, empathetic, eager to please. But those same traits made her vulnerable to the weight of Hollywood's demands. And as her fame grew, so did the number of people who wanted something from her. She entered a new phase of her career in the mid-2000s, a period filled with opportunity but also imbalance. Projects became inconsistent. Some roles showcased her brilliance. Others felt like detours she hadn't intended to take. The industry that once championed her began shifting its attention to younger faces, a cycle as old as Hollywood itself. Stars rise, stars fade, the machine keeps moving. In the days after Brittany Murphy's death, her home became a museum of unanswered questions. Detectives moved through its narrow hallways with flashlights, illuminating the shadows she once lived inside. Floors creaked under their steps. Cabinets were lined with bottles, prescriptions for migraines, anxiety, pain, sleep. Some belonged to her, Some belonged to Simon. Others seemed to have no owner at all. It was as if the house itself held its breath, unwilling to reveal the full story. Her mother, Sharon Murphy, stood at the center of the storm. She had been living in the house during Brittany's decline, present in the final hours, and again present when Simon died. To the public, she was a grieving mother, fragile and devastated. To skeptics, she was a figure wrapped in silence. When forensic reports suggested the presence of heavy metals in Brittany's system, speculation erupted. Mold, poisoning, environmental toxins, neglect, something else, something darker. Each theory spread like wildfire, and Sharon's refusal to entertain deeper investigation only intensified the smoke. The home, once a symbol of success, turned into a cautionary tale. It was sold, stripped, renovated, yet its reputation lingered. Some said the air felt wrong. Others claimed the walls held secrets that drywall could never bury. Even years later, new owners spoke of unease, as if the residue of tragedy clung to the property like dust. Meanwhile, Hollywood struggled with its own guilt. The industry that had once celebrated Brittany, placing her on posters, magazine covers, and award stages, now faced the uncomfortable truth of how it had treated her during her final years. Casting directors who once dismissed her as unreliable spoke quietly about missed signs. Former co-workers recalled moments when she seemed lost, frightened, or unwell. No one had intervened. No one had asked the right questions. And now the chance to do so was gone. Documentaries emerged. Investigative articles resurfaced. Friends who had been pushed out of her life began talking, to cameras, to reporters, to anyone who would listen. They described her generosity, her warmth, her vulnerability. They described the isolation that grew around her, the gatekeeping, the secrecy inside the home. Their voices painted a portrait far more delicate than the public ever saw. Yet amid the grief and confusion, Brittany's work, ironically, experienced a quiet resurgence. Younger audiences discovered Clueless and fell in love with her bright, awkward charm. Film students studied her performance in Girl, interrupted as a masterclass in controlled emotional chaos. 8 Mile became a cultural artifact of early 2000s grit, carrying her image into a new generation of viewers. Her talent didn't fade with her life. It sharpened in retrospect, glowing even brighter against the darkness of her ending. There were no redemptions for Brittany, no final interviews or late-life comeback roles. Her story was frozen in place, locked in the last year of her life, defined by contradictions no investigation ever resolved. But there was a resurrection, not in the literal sense, but in the way the world began to revisit the woman behind the mystery. People stopped asking only how she died. They began asking who she was, what she carried, what she gave to the world before everything collapsed. The tragedy of Rising Glen Road remained unsolved. The autopsies remained clinical. The testimonies remained fractured. But Brittany Murphy's legacy, once overshadowed by speculation, began to rise again. Not as a cautionary headline, but as a reminder of how fragile brilliance can be when surrounded by too many shadows. She didn't return to the screen. She didn't reclaim her place in the industry. But in memory, her light steadied. In her absence, the world finally looked closely enough to see her. Hollywood forgets fast. It turns yesterday's rising star into today's footnote with ruthless efficiency. But every so often, a story lingers. Not because of scandal, not because of spectacle, but because something inside it feels unfinished. Brittany Murphy's story is one of those. The timeline is complete, yet the truth never settled. The questions never quieted, and the silence she left behind feels louder than any revelation could. What survives is the memory of a performer who could shift a room with a single look. A woman who carried vulnerability like a hidden flame. A daughter who chased a dream farther than anyone expected. Her films remain untouched by the chaos of her final months. They play the same way they always did. Bright, strange, gentle, searing. And each time her face flickers across a screen, the audience sees what Hollywood should have protected, what it never fully understood, and what it can never recover. Her legacy isn't the mystery that swallowed the last chapter of her life. It's the warmth she brought to every role, the ache she carried beneath her laughter, the defiance of a girl who refused to dim her own light. Long after the investigations stop and the rumors fade, that light is what endures. Some stars burn out, some stars vanish. She left behind a glow that still refuses to die.